It's definitely been a little quieter on the loot box front as of late, especially in light of companies retreating from the now stigmatized practice. EA in particular has been adamant about emphasizing that upcoming games like Battlefield 5 and Anthem will not feature any loot boxes whatsoever, with all microtransactions being vanity items you can purchase upfront or earn in-game through grind. But to say that the loot box problem has gone away would be premature. While we are seeing a lot of backpedaling, companies like EA insist on including loot boxes in their real moneymakers, namely FIFA and other EA Sports titles, and ecosystems like the Steam Marketplace that pave the way for allowing players to trade randomized in-game items for real-world money. Fortunately, those pushing back against this shit aren't letting up, especially Netherlands, who has recently shown that they weren't fucking around when they stipulated 2 months ago that certain loot boxes can constitute as gambling. You may recall that on April 19th, 2018, the Dutch Gaming Authority came to the conclusion that after examining 10 popular games with loot boxes, 4 of them were deemed unlawful due to the fact that items randomly earned in these games could be traded for real monetary value. While it wasn't specified what those 4 games were, it wasn't hard to assume that the likes of CSGO, Dota 2, PUBG, Rocket League, FIFA 18, and any games that allowed players to cash out through first or third-party means could be among them. Director of the Dutch Gaming Authority, Marja Appelman, had also added, quote, "They are designed as gambling games are designed, with the feeling that you have almost won. There are all sorts of sound effects and visual effects when you open such a loot box, so you have a tendency to play through and through." Truer words could not have been spoken. Whether publishers admit it or not, loot boxes are designed with the same principles as slot machines to exploit the same psychological tics. As a result, it was deliberated that the 4 games Netherlands deemed as unlawful must remove their loot boxes within 8 weeks or face fines and sales bans. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been 8 weeks since then, and Netherlands has seemingly been true to their threat, as Valve has been forced to shut down the Steam Marketplace that has paved the way for CSGO and Dota 2 skin gambling. The following information comes from a notice that Valve sent out to Dutch CSGO and Dota 2 players, which reads as follows. In May, we received 2 letters from the Dutch Conspelatoriteit. I butchered the hell out of that, my apologies, stating that Counter-Strike Global Offensive and Dota 2 contain loot boxes that violate the Dutch Betting and Gaming Act. The Conspelatoriteit accusation is different from how other countries think of loot boxes. So we hired Dutch legal counsel, looked at the recent study into loot boxes published by the Conspelatoriteit, and learned more about Dutch law. We still don't understand or agree with the Conspelatoriteit legal conclusion, and we have responded to explain more about CSGO and Dota 2. In the meantime, we have a threat from the Conspelatoriteit to prosecute Valve if we don't implement a remedy by June 20th. The letters don't tell us how to do that, but the study into loot boxes does contain one rather simplistic statement. Loot boxes contravene the law if the in-game goods from the loot boxes are transferable. Loot boxes do not contravene the law if the in-game goods from the loot boxes are not transferable. So for now, our only practical alternative is to disable trading and Steam Marketplace transfers for CSGO and Dota 2 items for Dutch consumers. We apologize to you for this inconvenience. We hope that after more engagement with the Conspelatoriteit, they may refine their legal demands and we can find a solution that is less inconvenient. You've gotta love the feigned "we don't know where this is coming from" attitude oozing out of this message. We still don't understand or agree, says Valve, when the logic behind these developments is really quite simple. See, Valve, there are these things called laws, regulations, and systems in place in the Netherlands when it comes to gambling and consumer protection, which you and others underhandedly bypassed and ignored by claiming that what you do isn't gambling when it so clearly is. So when the Dutch government caught up with your crap, they said, hey, that's not right. Either go through the proper channels or get that shit out of here. See, the only safety net that loot boxes have right now is that the law hasn't caught up to them yet. But after EA set the gaming industry on fire with the Battlefront 2 debacle, as more and more people become aware that loot boxes are scummy business practices that psychologically manipulate consumers for financial gain, that's slowly but surely beginning to change. In light of these developments, the Dutch Gaming Authority issued a full statement. They talked about how from June 20th and onwards, they would be checking flagged games featuring loot boxes to see if they've been adjusted to comply with Dutch gambling laws, about how allowing players to cash out items earned from loot boxes is gambling and that you need a license in Netherlands to offer gambling-like games, about concerns regarding gambling addiction, minors in particular, about how the Gaming Authority will be fining companies who don't comply either 830,000 euros or about 961,000 US dollars, or 10% of the game publisher's worldwide turnover that violates the law if that fine exceeds the 830,000 euros. How if this administrative enforcement doesn't prove effective, they'll pursue criminal prosecutions, and finally, how criminal prosecutions may happen over a long period of time by nature. Oh yeah, if I were a game publisher who has been over-reliant on loot boxes, I would be shitting my pants right about now. I'm looking at you, EA, you and your precious FIFA Ultimate Team card packs. Do keep in mind that talks of loot box regulation is happening across the entire European Union, and if there's one thing we have learned about the EU, especially in light of how they passed the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, in response to the Facebook and Cambridge Analytica controversy, it's that they don't fuck around when it comes to consumer protection laws. And when the European Union passes consumer regulation, you bet your ass that companies from around the world will follow suit and readjust their policies and practices across the board in accordance to the new regulation, as the European Union is a huge market. That's why you've been getting all those policy update emails as of late. That is courtesy of the European Union. As loot boxes continue to be further scrutinized, there may very well come a time when the European Union decides to regulate loot boxes across the board, and when that happens, game companies around the world will have no choice but to follow suit in a similar fashion, at which point loot boxes would become far less viable as monetization options, business practices would improve, and our games and the gaming medium as a whole would be better off for it. At this point, loot box regulation has become an unstoppable snowball of the gaming industry's own making that will keep on rolling. And you know what? I say good riddance. Loot boxes have ruined enough of our games, and the gaming industry has been irresponsibly complacent for long enough that I'm fine with this much-needed intervention. These are just one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on Netherlands bringing down the hammer on loot boxes in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel directly, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.